after several thousand, they just quit counting. There was that many.
South Africa.
So this has been something, this hunt for gold, this
mining.
hunt for mineral resources, has been something that goes back all the way through our history. According to the Sumerian tablets, there were problems because these people who came to this planet as astronauts were suddenly turned into gold miners. And mining under the dirt is tough, hot, back-breaking work.
So they needed
and so there were
slaves.
some strikes, there were slowdowns, demand for higher wages, demand for help. And the leadership of the Anunnaki were troubled as to what they were going to do about it. And some of them were calling for harsh measures and punishment for those that wouldn't dig the gold. But their science officer, Enki, said, well, now, I've been studying Earth primitives at my laboratory in South Africa, and I believe that we could tweak with the DNA of these Earth primitives and make ourselves a worker race that could do all the hard labor work and free us of the job. And interestingly enough, they had the same ethical arguments that we have today about gene splicing and cloning. They said it is not up to us to play God. Only God, only the universal creative force can actually create living beings. And this is true. So don't let anybody tell you that people are trying to argue that aliens created humans. That's not the idea. All they did was what we do with animals, horses, cows, sheep, dogs, and cats. They improved the breed. According to the Sumerian tablets, the science officer Enki and his partner Harshad took the ovum of an Earth female and fertilized it with the sperm of an Anunnaki male, and then implanted it in vitro fertilization into the vagina of a Anunnaki female who carried it to term, and then they performed a cesarean birth and produced a hybrid between the two species that they call the Adama, the Adam, the first Earth person.
Also means slave.
And initially, these were like mules. They could not reproduce, so they had to keep creating them. But after further experimentation and dabbling with the DNA, they actually perfected to where the humans could now reproduce themselves. And this is where the trouble started. According to the Anunnaki overlord Enlil, he was perturbed by the mating sounds of the humans as they reproduced like rabbits. And when they realized that Nibiru was coming back and there was going to be some giant earth changes, it was decided that the humans had gotten out of hand. For any of you who've seen the Star Trek show Tribbles, it was kind of like the humans had become the Tribbles. We were overrunning everything. So it was decided to let nature take its course, and when Nibiru got close enough to cause geophysical disasters on the Earth, the Anunnaki just left in their ships and went into orbit around the Earth while the Great Flood rolled over most of the land. The ancient tablets that predate the Bible by about 3,000 years detail the story of the flood with two significant differences. Whereas the Bible's story of the flood tells how Noah was contacted by his God and told to build an ark, and he took of all living things, etc. The Sumerian version has the person as Utnapishtim, and he was told by his God to build an ark, and it was the same dimensions, sealed the same way, is passed down to the biblical account. The other difference is very intriguing to me because I often wondered, how do you keep going in a boat filled with animals? Do the lions lie down with the gazelles? What's happening there? But according to the Sumerian tablets, Utnapishtim was told to build an ark and that it was going to be filled with the seed of every living thing. And so since we already know they had a working knowledge of DNA and of cloning and of genetic manipulation, then all of a sudden we see, instead of a boatload of animals, you had a boat with a closet with DNA tissues and DNA samples in it that could then be used after dry ground was found to replenish the earth, and apparently this was what was done. Ironically enough, science tells us that farming began in the higher altitudes of the Caucasus Mountain region the exact location of Mount Ariyat, where we were told the ark, both in the Sumerian account and in the Bible, came to rest. So you would think that farming would begin in the very rich soil of the riverbeds and then move upwards, but instead it's the opposite. It began in the mountains and moved downward. Support for the idea of the Sumerian account. Other evidence of life on the earth that may have had alternative technology can be found in South Africa, where scientists and researchers have found thousands and thousands of these stone circles with no entrances, no exits. They're just circles. And over there, the people will tell you, well, they're just corrals. You know, that's where we keep the animals. That's where they did. But these stone circles have been dated back to more than 200,000 years ago. And as I said, there's no entrances. So what good is a corral if you can't put the animals in or get them out? No, they were for something else. And what they are finding out is that apparently